What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving life? First, the sad news is that Thoreau was right. Most people are leading quiet lives of desperation, lacking in meaning, fulfillment, and vitality. But we choose more. We choose to create extraordinary lives. And the Art of Vibrant Living show entertains you with inspiration, empowerment, and education to create your life into a masterpiece. It's time. Let's vibe up.
Aloha, y'all. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited. This is Daniel Aaron, and we are on the Art of Vibrant Living show. We got a groovy good show today that will for sure be entertaining. And if you've been with me before, you know that entertainment's good. It's not the whole thing, though. So my invitation to you, I encourage you, I implore you, take something that Rob shares with you today and put it into practice in your life. That's where the rubber meets the road, so that you can actually create your life today to be more vibrant. Now, Rob Lange, our guest today, the expert, is indeed an expert not just on experts, but he's an expert on the press and media, right? He has spent more than 35 years helping entrepreneurs, small businesses, and nonprofits generate millions of dollars in feature media coverage. He specializes in showing people how to establish the business behind their skills and position themselves as the go-to expert in their industry. Rob is the creator of the Press and Media for Entrepreneurs and Small Businesses, and he's here to share not just strategies, but also stories from decades of experience in the field. If you've ever wondered how to get noticed, build credibility, or amplify your message, this is a special and important conversation for you. I am so delighted that you are with us here today. Rob, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. It is fantastic to be here. And boy, your energy just is coming through, and I'm loving it.
Awesome. Well, Rob, let's dive right in, because, you know, one of the things when we first met, I wondered about, and I suspect that others do too, press and media in this age that is so digital, and social media is the only media that a lot of people know or think about, right? What is press and media? I think, we better go back to basics. What is press? What is
Sure.
media?
Well, that's a fantastic question. And because you're right, anybody that seems to be under 35, when they hear the word media, they automatically put social with it, and they think
Right.
social media. They've been born and raised on social media. But there are many of us that remember media before social media, mainstream media, which is TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, and then more recent forms of media include online media and podcasts, which have grown into its own entity now. And I think it's very interesting to understand that while press and media can cross over and be utilized on social media, the opposite isn't necessarily true. Sure, there's a few things that start on social media and the mainstream media will pick up on, but for the most part, it's so it's just that social media was created, and for the most part is for social interaction, where the mainstream press and media has always been used to inform, to educate, to persuade, to enlighten, and of course to entertain. So, when you're thinking about TV, radio, newspapers, for example, magazines, we grew up with them. A lot of us still remember our favorite radio stations and TV programs, and now there are all kinds of retro oldies stations and classic TV programs and stuff like that. So we've all had an affinity to press and media our whole lives. We just don't always stop and see it for more than its surface level of how it affects us on our lives, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm with you. So let me let's. A lot of people doubt the media these days, right? There's a lot of
Mhm.
controversy and opinions for, against, this media, that media. How does that how does that factor, not even to get into the truth of it or any of that stuff, but how does
Right.
that play into how people like you and I and entrepreneurs, small businesses, nonprofits can use the press to move our causes forward? Or does it?
Well, it can. And here's the thing. Um, when you get beyond the surface level of what press and media is for news and entertainment and so on, you really can realize very quickly that it is a business tool, and it's a tool
Hmm.
that every business has the opportunity to utilize and tap into. Along with that, and I talk mostly from a business point of view because most that I work with are businesses, whether they be online businesses or brick and mortar businesses or both, that have always thought, geez, how can I get my business on TV or in the newspaper or in a magazine? Or they'll watch a similar business to them themselves and say, why does that guy get to be on the TV? Why can't I do that? You know. So when you realize that it's a business tool that we all have the ability to tap into, once you know how to do it, that's the key. Then you can start seeing the different possibilities. But while I talk about businesses, it is also utilized for um, in other ways that are very beneficial. If you have a message,
Hmm.
it's a great way to get your message out there and reach a larger audience. If you have a cause, a nonprofit, another good use of the media, let's go back, I don't know what it's been now, maybe 30, 40 years, is when John Walsh used it to start profiling fugitives on the run and enlist the public, the viewers, to help find some of these people that have escaped prisons or wanted by the law. Or when I remember in the Elizabeth Smarts case where and you hear this a lot when somebody's been abducted or something, they say keep your story out there, keep it in the media,
Hmm.
because the more eyes that are on it, or the more people that are aware of it, you see signs all over in stores and on phone poles. But boy, having it profiled on the news or a program can really attract attention to it. So there's a lot of good uses and benefits too, not just for business, but I've had people that just have used it and didn't realize it was this tool, as I mentioned, and thought, oh my gosh, this is a great way to get out there. Because back to what you said, the media has always been influential and credible. Um, some more than others. You know, we've got what they call the tabloid media. And once social media or casual media started becoming popular, some mainstream people have tried to have more of a casual approach. Look at TMZ. You know, that's really like a very casual, gossipy, almost social media like show on mainstream media. And it's got its own audience. So that's, I think, the greatest appeal of media today is there are um, it's just like radio. When we grew up listening to radio, depending how old you are, you might have had a station in your market that you heard all your favorite bands or artists. You know, you could go from hearing the Monkees to maybe hearing Led Zeppelin to maybe hearing Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell. You know, it was everything was, and then they started to come up with uh, uh, rather than one all-encompassing, they started to come up with different formats: country, classic rock, oldies, blues, gospel, and they became their own formats and their own specified media. And the same thing has happened in mainstream media. There's a lot of I worked with a trucker, a guy that was a cross the road trucker that had a course that he came out with for truckers. And I didn't know it till we started working together, but there are 5 trucker magazines. There's a trucker radio network with all different kinds of stations and formats, truckers TV networks that they show at all the truck stops. So each niche market and industry seems to have its own specific media as well. But the thing is with most mainstream media is they are very protective of their audience. They have among the most loyal audiences you'll ever find in anywhere in any medium, and they're kind of protective about who they allow to reach their audience and who they put on their airwaves or in their pages or whatever. So that's why it's important to understand how the press and media works. Then you can adapt that to your business, your message, your cause.
Okay. Okay, cool. I'm with you on all of that. That's fantastic. So, it seems like we could go deeper into this, though. I think hopefully enough by now, people are saying, okay, yeah, there's something beyond social media, and I'm getting the sense of how that can be useful for my business, my cause, my message. So,
Mhm.
and I know it's complex, and I think you have a 12 stage or 12 platform program that teaches people about this. Well, what about what's the one thing that people need to know in order to become more visible in the mainstream media and press?
The one thing is to understand the difference between PR, which is like a plug or a mention or something,
Huh.
and what I call press and media marketing and promotion, where you use it as a vehicle for feature media coverage. And by feature media coverage, I mean a full story, a full print story, a full segment on a morning show or a talk show featuring you and your business and your message, where they're wanting to know what you do, how long you've been doing it, who you help, how you serve people. And that's what I mean by feature media coverage. And that's kind of the area that I specialize in. Some people use it just to for businesses. For example, I had a dry cleaner that contacted me and said, "Yes, I live in a town with 6 dry cleaners, 5 or 6," and he says, "People generally stay within a 7 mile radius. Most of my business comes from a 7 mile radius. Very rarely will they go 2 or 3 towns over for a dry cleaner." So he said, "So here's my problem. I want to stand out." When he started, there were only 2 dry cleaners. Now there were 5 or 6, or 5 and a 6th one coming, because I need to separate myself from them and stand out and become the dry cleaner in my market. And we had a great time working together. And he wasn't sure how press and media could help him. I showed him. We worked on it together, and he is now the not the dominant and the prominent dry cleaner in his market, doing things that others never thought of. Number one, and number two, now we're all trying to copy. But I think that's the thing, is he utilized it as a business tool to reach the goal that he wanted, and that's what I help people do. I think I started working with entertainers, and entertainers, while they are the greatest talents that you'll ever meet, they are the lousiest and worst business people you'll ever meet. So a lot of them came to me and said, "Help me create the business behind what I do. You
Hmm.
handle the business and create all of that." And that's how I started in all this. And what people realized as we were doing this is you can use the press and media in different ways. That dry cleaner just wanted to use it locally in his own area. But a lot of people um, will use it maybe for the regional business. Or in some cases, I worked with people like Susie Orman and Orville Redenbacher, Richard Simmons, Wally Famous Amos. The list goes on and on. These people that use the press and media as one of the main foundations for their business. Um, they wanted to be media personalities, and they wanted to be on talk shows, and they wanted to use infomercials. Richard Simmons and his Sweating to the Oldies. Oh my gosh, there were so many people that used the medium as a business tool. So that's the great thing about what I do and those I work with, is it can be something very small and local for a physical brick and mortar dry cleaner. I work with realtors, attorneys, doctors, or it can be somebody that's trying to be nationwide or international now. So,
Okay. Well, you mentioned the business behind the
mhm,
skills, right? I've heard you say that. And
mhm.
as you were speaking just then, I thought of the cliche amongst a lot of my peers, authors, people that have podcasts, and the cliche sort of joke is, well, when I get on Oprah, or if I get on Oprah, right? Which is in some way, I think, parallel to what you're describing. There's this hope a lot of people have that they're going to get this big appearance, and that's going to, suddenly catapult them into the spotlight. My guess is that a lot of people, if they did that, it wouldn't actually benefit them, or it might even be problematic for them. Is there some truth to that?
Yes, and I'll tell you how I discovered that myself.
Hmm.
Uh, I initially wrote the book Press and Media for Entrepreneurs and Small Businesses, and it was to let people know that the press and media can be a business tool. It can be more than something we just watch for entertainment or information.
Hmm.
And the people that bought the book were encouraged to share their media coverage with me. So those that got newspaper stories or magazine features on them would send me a copy of them. Now, this is before the internet, I should mention. And when they did a print interview, they would do an interview like we're talking right now, and the reporter or editor would either record it or take notes. And then they would go back and they would craft this beautiful story, and that's the thing that ran. They would use their expertise as a writer to create that story. But when the people that bought my book got on TV or radio, especially live, they didn't have that luxury of having that other person to craft the story. So they would do these shows, and sometimes they were nervous, or they would sput and stutter, or just look like a deer in headlights. So it's like, great, they're all using the book to get press and media, but you don't want to get a bad reputation in the media, or you don't want to, blow the opportunities, or getting it is only part of it. So I pulled the book off the market. That's when I turned it into a course. And I literally doubled the contents of the course to include what to do when the media contacts you, how to get ready for your media interviews, how to be a good media guest, how to control your interview, because a lot of times the person interviewing you doesn't know anything about you, and they go to kind of a default mentality. When I was working with entertainers, we'd have a magician that was maybe performing somewhere, a Summerfest or a venue, so they'd have the magician on, and they don't know anything, so the automatic default was, oh, show us some tricks. And then they spend the whole segment doing the magic tricks, and the magician would end, and at the end he'd say, man, I didn't get to promote the venue that I was at. I didn't get to, tell them where to get tickets or any of the vital information. So it's important that you know how the media works, how to adapt your message to the press and media, and then how to prepare for media appearances. And then once you're doing them, how to control them so you're sure to get everything out that you want to include. And once you have those 4 or 5 things in place, then it becomes a whole different game. Then you start, after you get your first wave of media, people that buy the book, or it's now just a course, or take my coaching, when they get their first wave of media, they're like, oh my gosh, people are coming up to them saying, I saw you here, I heard you there. But then after about a week of that, they start reflecting, and they start going, oh man, I should have said this, or I forgot to say that, or I said this, I didn't give out my, So they start thinking, and that's the process really working. Now they're starting to understand the media from the inside and trying to better themselves for future media appearances. But going back to what you said, I can't help, and you said it was okay to tell a story or two.
Yeah, please.
The way that I got into this, and I'll make this as brief as possible, is I was an entertainer. Years ago, we had a family act, and this was in the days that family acts were big. We had the Osmonds and the Jacksons and the DeFrancos and the Beach Boys and the Carpenters and the Bee Gees, and our parents, because we were minors, our parents were our managers. And they knew nothing about showbiz. They knew nothing about anything. They were from a different generation, So when I was 16, I fired our parents, and we had a couple of other. That was a trip in itself. But a couple of years later, we had a couple of managers in between. But then when I turned 18, I took over and managed our group, and I noticed that if I was going around promoting my group, why didn't I bring some other acts as well That way, if they didn't want me, they might want one of the other acts. So I did that and it started working real well. And I ended up opening a local entertainment agency. Well, at the same time, I did a radio show in my hometown. And it was a talk entertainment celebrity interview show. So one day I'm on the air and I just had a couple of celebrities on from the soap opera All My Children, which in the early 80s, soap operas were probably bigger than what reality shows are today. We had General Hospital, All My Children. Housewives called them their stories. They watched them every day. They were so faithful, so loyal. So this lady calls me, and she was the marketing director for the Midwest Kmarts, and they were doing a grand opening Kmart that Saturday. This was on a Wednesday. And she said, we have Loretta Lynn booked, and she had to cancel. I think she had laryngitis. And she says, we're in a pickle, and you're the only person I know that can help me. You know celebrities, you're in the area. Her crew was going to handle the whole event. So she said, we need some celebrities. I need somebody to host the event. She asked me to host it for her. And long story short, I called the studio. I called a couple of my friends that were on the show, and they said, yes, we'd love it. We flew them out. And the lady from Kmart tells me, my bosses are coming from the corporate office, so we got to make this good. And the other thing was they had spent all of their advertising budget on promoting the Loretta Lynn thing. So we have 2 days to do this, no money to do it. So I said, the only thing I can do is put it on the radio. I'll put it on my station. I also contacted some other media people I knew, and they all got behind us because it was a community store that was opening. So she said, we're expecting 300 people. My bosses are coming. We got to make this good. Well, the thing comes, the day of the event, I hosted it. We promoted it. The other media picked up on it. And we drew over 3,000 people to this Kmart store. And it was just a phenomenal success. Kmart loved it. The two celebrities, that are used to being cooped up in a studio, thought it was great to come out and meet 3,000 of their fans and see just how popular they were. I loved it because it gave my radio show and my entertainment agency a boost. So that was great. Okay, good. That was it. We had a great time. We saved the day, and I was happy for the lady, right? Well, Monday morning comes, and I'm back on the air, and I get two phone calls. One is from the studio of All My Children. The two stars went back talking about this hotshot agent and producer in Chicagoland that did these fantastic shows. And by 12 o'clock noon the next day, I had 65 actors and actresses from all the different daytime soaps calling me to be their agent in my agency. The other call I got was from Kmart saying that was such a success, we would like to hire you to do all of the Kmart. And you gotta remember, in this day, Kmart was a big store. It wasn't kind of diminished as it has been lately. But so they offered me to do all the grand openings in the Midwest. And we did that. And it was all because of, as I reflected on it, it was because of the press and media. This thing could have died. They didn't have any money to spend, and it was all free, using the press and media. So that was the first part of the story. The second part of the story is AP, which is Associated Press, which is a newswire, a news association, heard about it, picked up the story. So now it aired all over the country. And I started getting calls from all over the country to do this. Kmart expanded our grand openings now to be nationwide. And it was all in everywhere I went, I used press and media, feature press and media to promote these events. And it was just amazing the power that the media had. You could spend thousands and thousands of dollars and to get that kind of coverage. Well, the other thing that came out of that, and this goes back to what you said, is Oprah called. She said, oh my gosh, that is amazing. I am an All My Children fan. And I've been following what you've been doing, and that is great. And I would love to have you and some of your stars on the show. Here's the deal, though. I saw the kind of crowds you've been drawing, because by this point, too, we expanded from Kmart. So we were doing shopping malls all over the country, fairs and festivals, and all kinds of, celebrity autograph shows and stuff. So she said, I see the crowds you've been drawing, and I don't think my studio is big enough to do that. So she ended up contacting a suburban mall, and we did the appearance at a mall. I think we drew over 10,000 people, and it was just crazy that Oprah contacted me and invited us to do this. Like you said, everybody thinks, well, they want to get on Oprah. What are you going to do? So anyway, that's how it went. And this was all before the internet or anything like that. Several years later, once the internet came on, Oprah had me back on again. And it's amazing. When we were talking, like you and I are right now, you do not realize that she's got 26 million viewers a day, and she's in 143 countries.
Wow.
You just talk like we do. We talked when the interview was over. We talked backstage for a bit. We hugged and kissed and went away, and that was it. Then when the thing airs, it's like, wow, look at this. I was getting calls from all over the world asking me how I was doing this. And, that's where the course really took off. And I thought I knew about press and media till I started working with Oprah. And then I saw how it made her the celebrity that she was, and the power that came with it, being syndicated all over the world. So you see that, first it was local. When I was a radio personality, it's like, oh, I get how media works locally. It's kind of cute. I can be in a grocery store and somebody may recognize me, But then with the celebrity appearances, it took it to another level. Then with the Kmart going nationwide, it took it nationwide. And then the Oprah thing took me international. So I really reflected on this. People were asking how to do it. That's why I started making the course more prominent. And by this time, the internet was out. So the course and the coaching that I do has just helped so many people. But you don't know who's listening. You don't know who's watching. And one person can make a difference. But at the same time, when you're hitting the masses, today in business, everybody's talking about niching down. Niche down. Find your ideal target client and just focus on them. And the other thing that people do today is they use the word coach and expert kind of self-appointedly. Oh, yes, I'm an expert. I planned my own wedding, and I could plan weddings for other people. I am now an expert. And I use that example because that's a real common one. I can't tell you how many women think because they plan their own wedding, I should be a wedding planner. And I get people that come to me with that, and I say it's not as simple as planning your own, but if you want to do that, we can work on that. But same for expert, they just use that casually. And when I was working with the celebrities that I mentioned, Susie Orman and others, Orville Redenbacher, I believed it takes 11 or 12 things to be a true expert, and that's where I created my Expert Entrepreneur course. One of those pillars is press and media. So I kind of pulled that out, made it its own course based on all of the success I was having all over the place. And it's just been amazing. And like I say, now I get businesses that contact me, nonprofits, charities, people that are looking for missing children or loved ones or whatever. So there's so many different people that can use the press and media in what they do.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Rob. And that brings, I got a quick story that relates to that. And I've got 2 questions. So I'm going to go question, story, question. First question might be a little bit odd. And when you describe that whole sequence, right, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, Oprah's calling you, 2 appearances on Oprah that you told us about.
Yeah.
How did you create that?
I think the main way I created it was I kind of subconsciously, now looking back, I could say this is what really happened. But when you're in the thick of the moment, you're kind of like, the lady contacted me because I was on the radio and she knew that I knew a lot of celebrities. And there were some people that were in my life that kind of took me under their wing too when I was getting into entertainment. George Burns, Steve Allen, some old timer people that kind of said, there are no books on the business of entertainment. So, they took me under their wings, taught me what I needed, and said, just when you get older, when you see some young entertainers needing help, pass this on, pay it forward. And that's why I think I started working with entertainers in the very beginning. But I
Mm.
think subconsciously I knew, like, hey, I have access to these celebrities. You know, very few people can just pick up a phone and call Orville Redenbacher or whoever, you know, all my children, Susan Lucci. At the same time, I was, even though it was just local, I understood the power of the media. You know, the media is there, with the exception of public radio, um, to sell advertisements.
Mm.
That's how they make their revenue. And they create programming that is targeted to their ideal audience that their advertiser are trying to reach. So it was just like those two things. I knew a little bit about the media and I knew a little bit about booking talent. And it's when this lady called and asked me to help her, I mean, she seemed so desperate and she was so nice. Um, and there wasn't really a lot of money in it for me, but it wasn't about the money. It was about helping her. And the money came as a result of that, you know. But so I just thought, yeah, I can see this. I can see these two things working together. I was doing an interview a couple years ago, and I didn't think of this, but the guy said, "Do you remember those commercials in the 70s or 80s where like a peanut butter truck was driving, and then a chocolate truck was driving, and they got in an accident, and that's how they came up with Reese's peanut butter cups." It was kind of like that. Two different worlds of mine um, unintentionally came together, and I saw the power. See, one of the things that I left out of the story, because I was trying to keep it short, is when
Mm.
Kmart said, "Could we do with this more?" We wanted to use the name of the soap opera, like, you know, so and so and so and so from All My Children.
Mm.
Or
Mm.
most people didn't know the soap opera actors and actresses' name. They knew the character. So
Mm.
they wanted, like, you know, Luke and Laura from General Hospital. Well, to use those names, I needed to get permission from the soap operas and the networks. So here I am, this 19-year-old kid going to New York to meet with these suits, trying to tell them. I mean, the first one I did without even realizing that, and they became aware of it, trust me. And so when I went to get their permission, uh, because the other thing, knowing the media like I did, I thought, geez, these are ABC stations. If every market I go into, I can be guaranteed to be on the ABC affiliates, ABC Radio Network and ABC TV. This is great. This is worth tens of thousands of dollars every appearance I do. Well, they wouldn't have that. They said
Mm.
no. But the one thing that they did say I could do is use the name of the soap. So if I had two people from All My Children, I had to use the actors and actresses' name. I could use their photo, so hopefully they would, oh, that's
Mm.
Erica or that's
Mm.
Tad, you know. Um, but I could use the name from All My Children or from One Life to Live or whatever. So that was good enough for me. It's like, okay, I know enough about press and media where as long as I can say that, that can make a big difference. And but I think that was the answer would be I just kind of utilized two or three things together that I saw that could help us in those situations. A, it provided her talent and short notice, and B, since there was no money to spend, it was the only way I could think of to promote it. I mean, there were other things I said too. Let's print up some flyers and stuff them in every bag for the next 2 days of everybody that goes through Kmart. And that stuff worked too, but it was the big press and media and that really made a difference.
That's beautiful. Well, and a couple of the things that I key in on as you speak that, firstly, from your heart, you had a desire to help, right? And
Yeah.
that's where it was coming from. Secondly, you had some vision, you saw some possibilities. And then third, you had one definition of genius is the pulling together of different thoughts or lateral thinking, right? That's another
Yeah.
form of intelligence. And so you were able to do all of that in service of helping. And how beautiful that it worked out for everybody, and especially for you and your business too. So that's
It
awesome.
was like I didn't do it thinking this is a business
Right.
being born or birthed here, um, but it was the result of it. I mean, that Monday morning when the celebrities called from the studio, I mean, they literally were passing the phone around. Daniel, hold on, Daniel, here, check this out. Oh, here's this guy from Chicago that I was telling you about. And this is, before cell phones. So, I mean, I'm just imagining this long phone cord being dragged around the makeup room. But then when Kmart called, and all of these different people were having these light bulbs go off at one time. And it was kind of a cool thing, A, to see, and B, to kind of be the catalyst of.
Mm-hmm.
And, then I started thinking of it in a greater picture. Because I know major cities are used to having celebrities, but I remember because when Kmart first said something, they said, you're outside of Chicago, so, we've got these major markets. And I said, yeah, but you know what? Celebrity appearances really are the strongest in areas that don't usually have access to something like this. Send me to Joplin, Missouri, send me to Paducah, Kentucky, send me to some small to medium markets, and I think these will be even more popular, and they were. So there was strategy that was came as a result of this, but it was helping them. And one of the things we would do is we would always try to tie in some of these appearances with a charity, so the charity was interested in us, and we give them some exposure, and so it was using it in positive ways as well.
That's beautiful. I love it. Okay, Rob, time is flying along for us. So I got a couple more questions, and I want to make this
Sure.
as helpful and practical to our audience as possible. What are a couple things that entrepreneurs can start doing now to take advantage of this world that you are turning us on to?
Well, I think we just kind of covered the first step, and that is realizing that press and media is something that is available as a business tool and a marketing and promotional vehicle to
Mm,
everyone. And there's a couple of steps. The first thing I do, like in my training, my course, is show people. I give them some brief background on the press and media, so we're all coming from the same point. But then
mm,
I show them how the press and media works. They're very finicky. Um, they have their own language, their own format, their own structure. And if you want to be part of that, you have to learn that.
mm,
When I was at my radio station, this was in the day of faxes, people used to fax story ideas to us. And we'd get 250 to 300 of these a day. And we would look at them, and I'd look at them for a second or less and know if it was something we were interested in.
mm,
I didn't have to read it, because if it wasn't formatted right, we couldn't
mm.
use it. So we'd only keep 7 or 8 a day, and the rest all went in the trash. So the
Right.
first thing is understanding how they work. Then the second is understanding how to adapt your message to it.
Mm,
And then the third thing is understanding that although it's featuring you and your business, it can't be structured as a blatant advertisement for your business.
mhm,
It's got to have some kind of newsworthy element or hook. And the hooks and news elements can be things such as a time of year, back to school, right after the first of the year, after all of the holiday brouhaha has died down. It's a slow time for the media, but one of the things that you can count on like clockwork is they have New Year's resolutions, and it's a new year, a new slate, time to make some changes. And what are you going to do to make this the best year ever? That's a great thing for businesses to tap into, because it's a hook that will say, hey, I can help you. If it's a new year, if you're looking for change, we can, assist you in that change. So there's a lot of things that you
mm.
have to understand how to put your message to what the media is looking for.
Okay, cool. That's great. Well, that's a good start. And obviously, we all know now it's an important world, a valuable world, and like many worlds, starts with understanding it. So, Rob, I believe, if I remember correctly, you have a free gift for our audience. Is that true?
Yes, and it's right along the lines of what you just mentioned. Since a lot of people only look at press and media, how we normally consume it, just as a viewer or a reader, um, once I start talking about using it as a business tool, people start thinking, oh, how does that work? So I put together a special report called Getting Started with Press and Media. And it talks a little bit more in depth about what I've talked about. It gives you some tips, some strategies, some ideas. It starts giving you a better understanding, so to get your creative juices going and see how it can be adapted to your message or your business or whatever else. And that's available at my website, theexpertexpert.com. Don't forget the word the or the in the beginning. And then right when you get to the page on the right side, there's a big red shield with my camera girl there that you can request yours, and it comes right to your inbox. It's got a lot of great information in there and some great next step things that you can utilize as well.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. So for y'all watching, it's on the screen, theexpertexpert.com. If you're listening, it's the same. And I think you can spell all of that. So perfect. That's a fantastic gift. I'm going to get that myself. I can see there's a lot for me to learn in there. So thank you, Rob. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to bring forward here in our last few moments?
No, it's just earlier you mentioned podcasts and authors and speakers. I
Yeah.
get some authors that'll contact me and say, "Oh, I put all this time and effort into writing my book, but now I can't sell it. I mean, I'm selling onesies and twosies." And a lot of people will take my program and say, "Oh my gosh, now I know how to do book signings and even book tours." I show people how to do book tours using the media. And the big thing to remember, I am not talking about social media. I am not talking about spending any money on media buys or ad spends or ads of any kind. This is all free once you learn how to do it. So I tell people this is a forever skill. You can do this whenever you need a boost of awareness, more visibility, tap into a larger audience, separate yourself from the competition. Some people do this on a weekly or monthly basis as it's part of their actual marketing and promotional elements to their business on a regular basis. So it can be as much or as little as you want, and it's available for everyone.
That's awesome. I love it, Rob. Well, hopefully there are some smart folks there definitely are smart folks in our audience. And I know that some of them are going to want to reach you, theexpertexpert.com. And I think that brings us to our final question, the big question. Can I ask you?
Let's go for it.
It's so big which makes it impossible, but because it's impossible, you can't go wrong. You've got tons of experience, so many stories, decades in the industry. If I now ask you to distill that, to bring it all the way down, if you had just one thing you could share with our audience to help them live their most vibrant, thriving life, what's that one thing?
What seems impossible is possible. I always tell people, go for it. What we think about, we bring about. And so many people kind of create their own obstacles. I get people that come to me for consultation or something, and they're stuck at getting started. And, I got to tell you, we all need other people, mentors, coaches, whatever. I follow you. I think the work you do is fantastic. It's exciting. It's inspirational. And I think what people have to do is get the right mindset and know that, hey, anything is possible if you put in the time and effort and you think beyond just the surface with this. If I only looked at press and media as a place to watch my favorite TV shows or watch the nightly news, I wouldn't have ever accomplished any of this. So it's going deeper, the greater picture. Sometimes you got to stand back to see the bigger picture to go in, a little more concise. So that's what I would say. That was, I guess, a longer answer than you were looking for, but the impossible is possible.
That's perfect. The impossible is possible. What you think about, you bring about. I love it. Rob, It's been fun. It's been awesome, educational. I love what you're doing. Thank you for all your work, for your good heart, who just wanted to help in that instance, and so many more. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, and keep up your good work as well.
You are welcome. And for y'all in our audience, thank you, because you really are the superstars of this story. I love that you're here. I love that you are interested in a vibrant, thriving life. More than that, you're doing something about it. My encouragement, do something more. Take something that Rob shared with you. Go get his guide, theexpertexpert.com, and dive in. Start taking advantage of the press and media. Thank you for being with us. I love you. See you soon.
Mahalo for tuning in to the Art of Vibrant Living show, y'all. I'm Daniel Aaron. and may you live with great vibrancy.